So these first 4 questions are asking us to solve for an indicated variable. We talked about in class that sometimes it's easier to circle the variable just to identify which one we're trying to isolate. So on this first question, we need to get rid of a 1 and a negative 2. And just like when we were solving equations, if they had numbers, we would subtract 1 from both sides, leaving us with negative 2x equals v minus 3w minus 1. Remember, none of that can go together. And then this is negative 2 times x, so to undo that, I'm going to divide by negative 2, which is going to give me x equals v minus 3w minus 1 all over negative 2, because none of those pieces divide by negative 2. All right, question 2, they're asking us to solve for x again. So remember, when the fraction bar is affecting the whole thing, you've got to fix that division first. And to fix division, we're going to multiply both sides by 4y. Doing that is going to give me 4yz equals 1 minus 2x. All right, and now we're back to a similar problem as number 1. Subtract 1 from both sides. So we just write that as 4yz minus 1 equals negative 2x. And divide by negative 2. So your final answer should be x equals 4yz minus 1 all over negative 2. Question 3, they're asking us to solve for a. There's a few different things we can do here. Some of you, I think, are mostly going to see that this is division by 5, so to undo it, I need to multiply by 5. You're multiplying this entire right side by 5, so the best way to indicate that is to use parentheses. So when I do that, I'm going to write 3a equals 5 times 4r plus d. You can go ahead and say 3a equals 20r plus 5d if you want to. That's not going to mess anything up. Either way, your next step is going to be to divide by 3. So you could have written your answer as 5 times 4r plus d all over 3. Or if you wanted to, if you had already distributed, you could have a equals 20r plus 5d over 3. I'm not going to count either one of those wrong because in both cases, a is by itself and they do mean the same thing. And question 4, they're asking us to isolate a again. So add 1 to both sides. I've got 2a equals p minus 2n plus 1. And remember, things that are bumped up next to each other mean multiplication. So to undo that, I'm going to divide by 2. And you may notice that these 2's divide, but since 2 doesn't divide into every single thing, I'm not actually going to divide. So my final answer I'm just going to write is a equals p minus 2n plus 1 all over 2. Okay, this set is asking us to solve each equation. So remember, for the most part, if you scan through questions 5 through 10, notice that they all have parentheses, except for question 6. So on all of those, you're going to want to distribute first. And when I do that on this first one, I get negative 72 equals negative 4v minus 40. And now we're just trying to get v by itself, so add 40 to both sides. Negative 32 equals negative 4v. Almost always our last step is going to be division because we're trying to undo the multiplication that's happening right here. So when I do that, I'm going to get v equals positive 8. Remember, negative divided by negative is positive. All right, just like with questions 2 and 3 above, this fraction, this division is affecting everything, so I have to deal with it first. So I'm going to multiply by 10 on both sides. It's going to give me negative 10 equals negative 9 plus n. And then I need to get rid of the negative 9. And to undo that addition, I'm going to use positive 9. So I'm going to have negative 1 equals n, or n equals negative 1. All right, question 7. I put this in there to trick you a little bit because sometimes people think you're supposed to add first. Remember, you always have to distribute first. So negative 7 is just going to come down. And I'm going to distribute 8n minus 20 equals 8n. 8n minus 27. And some of you may start to notice that your n's are going to cancel each other out. Well, when those cancel, you should be left with negative 27 equals negative 27. Remember, when your variable cancels, it's either all real numbers or no solution. And because negative 27 does equal negative 27, this is all real numbers. Or you could say infinite solutions. I'm not going to count you wrong with either of those answers. All right, question 8. I've got, I need to distribute first, so the left side's going to stay the same, 36x minus 12 after I distribute. Now this time I've got x's on both sides, so I need to get my x's on the same side of the equation and my numbers or constants on the other. So I'm going to first start by trying to move this 8x right here. So I'm going to subtract 8x. Remember, I have to do opposites because it's moving across an equal sign. All right, so when I do that, I get negative 12 equals 28x minus 12. And now I'm going to add 12 to both sides. Originally, I'm trying to eliminate this 12 over here. So those cancel, but you notice on the other side they cancel also. So you're left with 0 equals 28x. Now sometimes people think, oh, it's 0, so that's no solution. Well, there's still an x, so it cannot be no solution if there's still an x in the equation. So I'm going to divide by 28. And 0 divided by anything is just 0. So here my answer is x equals 0. Question 9 here. Again, you have to distribute before you can add or combine anything. So I've got negative 127, negative 1 plus 18a minus 18. You have a few different options. Remember, I tend to combine like terms here first, but you don't have to do that. You could move the 1 and the 18 separately. So I've got negative 127 equals 18a minus 19. And then I'm going to add 19 to both sides. So I've got 18a equals negative 108. Divide by 18. And now some of you struggle with how to do that without a calculator. I'll just tell you, I may not give you numbers this big, but I'll give you my trick. I'm trying to think of 8 multiplied by something so that I'm going to end in 8. So for example, 8 times 2 is 16. Well, that ends in 6. So I need to think 8 times what number is going to give me something that ends in an 8. And the answer is 6. 8 times 6 is 48. So I know this is 18 times 6. So negative 6 is my answer. Don't stress too much. If you were okay until I tried to divide that, and then you started struggling, you should be okay for tomorrow. I probably won't give you anything quite that large to divide without a calculator. All right, last one on this first page. This time I've got to distribute 2 times and on the same side. So I've got 0 equals negative 15 plus 6x minus 6x plus 10. Since we're all on the same side, I'm not going to do opposites. I'm just going to combine my like terms. No opposites, because everything's on the same side. So if I combine my numbers, negative 15 and 10, I get negative 5. If I combine 6x and negative 6x, those actually cancel each other out. So right now my statement reads 0 equals negative 5. Well, my variables have gone away, so I know I'm going to have either all real numbers or no solution. And 0 does not equal negative 5. That's not a true statement. So that means this right here is no solution. All right, so now we're moving on to inequalities. Again, anytime you see parentheses, you're going to want to distribute first just to simplify that. And it looks like all of these problems have distributive property to deal with first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Negative 30n minus 15 is greater than negative 135. Just like with an equation, going to try to isolate the variable first. Negative 30n is greater than negative 120. And then I want to divide by negative 30. And remember, the rule is that anytime you divide by a negative, the symbol's got to turn around. All right, that's going to give me n is less than positive 4. So when I go to graph that, all right, so that's my answer. But when I go to graph, I need to remember that this is open and it's going to be to the left. So I'm going to make an open circle on 4, and I want to shade the number line to the left. All right, again, we're going to distribute first. 94 less than or equal to 3 plus 12r plus r. These r's are on the same side, so I'm going to combine them. 94 less than or equal to 3 plus 13r. And now I'm going to go ahead and start moving stuff. 91 less than or equal to 13r. And then if I divide by 13, I'm going to get 7. So 7 less than or equal to r. Remember, you always need to rewrite this so that the variable's on the left before you graph. So that means r is now going to be greater than or equal to 7. All right, greater than or equal to is closed and to the right. So I'm going to do closed on 7 and to the right. Question 13, again, we're going to start with distributing. Don't try to add the 4 and the 7, got to distribute first. So we've got 4 plus 14 minus 7x less than or equal to 27 minus 4x. All right, I'm going to combine like terms since those are on the same side. 18 minus 7x less than or equal to 27 minus 4x. Remember, you don't have to combine like terms here. You could subtract 4 from both sides or subtract 14 from both sides. That would have still given you the same thing, as long as you're doing the same operation on the right-hand side over here where the 27 is. Okay, since I know my variable needs to end on the right-hand side, I'm just going to keep that 7 there for right now. I'm going to move the 18 first. So it's going to give me negative 7x less than or equal to 9 minus 4x. Then I'm going to add 4. Now, I wouldn't normally do this, but since it's an inequality, it's actually going to help me to keep it this way. And then I'm dividing by negative 3, and because I'm dividing by a negative, that symbol is going to turn around. So I'm going to have x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Remember, the turn has everything to do with the number that's dividing, whatever you would divide here in blue. Nobody cares what this number is on the other side, that 9. It's just whatever's dividing needs to be negative. All right, so that right there is going to be closed on negative 3, and we're doing greater than since we flipped it around, so to the right. All right, distribute again. So I'm going to have negative 7p minus 42 plus 7p less than negative 34 plus 2p. All right, combining our like terms, you should see that these things cancel. So I've got negative 42 is less than negative 34 plus 2p. Add 34 to both sides. All right, that's going to give me negative 8 less than 2p. Last step is to divide. Because the 2 is positive, nothing's going to flip around, so this is negative 4 is less than p. Now I do need to rewrite this so that p is on the left-hand side. So when I read it backwards, that gives me p is greater than negative 4. All right, so that's going to give me open circle on negative 4 and greater than. All right, these are our 2 compound inequalities. This is what we covered today. I only put 2 of them on your practice test since we talked about them in class today. So remember, anything that's written all together like this is going to be and we've got 2 equations, or 2 inequalities rather. 40 is greater than or equal to negative 5k. And then remember the middle repeats. Negative 5k is greater than negative 15. All right, when I go to solve these, divide by negative 5. So remember, division by negative is going to flip. So I've got negative 8 is now less than or equal to k. And now I also have to rewrite it and read it backwards. So k is greater than or equal to negative 8. On the other one, divide by negative 5. Again, division is going to flip. So k is going to be less than positive 3. So now when I go to graph these, I want to see if it's and, I need both things to be true. So I'm going to make closed circle on 8 and greater, open circle on 3 and less. And I've got to look here at my 3 sections. So I'm trying to determine, is it true, false, or true? So in this first section, and this first section just has the blue. So this is false. The middle section has both, blue and red, so it's true. And the far section only has one, so it is false. So when you go to write your final answer, all right, we had false, true, false. Only the true sections should end up on your graph, which means I need closed, shaded here in the middle, and then open. Remember, for the most part, you just copy the open or closed from your sketching. So your final answer is the green right here that's on the graph. That's my final answer. Okay, on 16, they've already split apart for us that this is or. So I'm going to, I'll just copy my problem down real quick. I'm going to divide by -10. Remember, division by a negative is going to flip, so I've got v is now greater than +9. I also have v minus 9 less than or equal to -7. I'm going to add 9. So v is less than or equal to +2. So we'll do our quick little sketches above the graph. So I'm going to be open on 9 and to the right. And this is closed on 2 and to the left. And again, our question, since it's or, I only need one thing to be true. So this first section is true, because at least there's the blue there. The next section is false, and here we're true. All right, so this is true, false, true. And again, you're going to copy anything that's true is going to go on your final answer. So closed and to the left, open and to the right. Your final answer is written here in green. All right, the directions for questions 17 through 19 say write an expression, which means I need no equal sign. Define the variable, so I need to say whatever variable I'm going to use stands for, and it says do not solve. So I don't want you to solve anything, we're just writing. This says the original item, the original price of an item plus, all right, there's a keyword, a sales tax of, all right, so 8.5%, remember there's two things with percent. First of all, percent means multiplication. And also, we need to make it a decimal. And we do that by moving the decimal place 2 times. So the original price, I'm going to call that X, plus 0.085. All right, that's me moving the decimal 2 times. But I have to multiply that by something, so I'm going to multiply that by X. You could use P if you wanted to. All right, and in this expression, X stands for the original price. Okay, again, this question is asking for an expression, so I'm not going to put any equal sign. It says the total cost of 6 pens and 3 folders. All right, so you could maybe do like, you could maybe do 6x plus 3y. But we want to have the same variable, and it tells me a folder costs $1.15 more than a pen. So instead of using a different variable for folder, I'm going to say 6x plus 3 times. I know a folder costs $1.15 more. That means I'm going to be adding. So a folder is the cost of a pen plus $1.15. So this expression is going to be 6 pens and 3 folders. The other thing we have to do is define our variable, and X, that was what we stuck with first. So remember, X stands for the cost of 1 pen. All right, expression again. This one was a little tricky. I had to reread this a few times. So it says the total pay for 12 hours of work at a base rate of P per hour. So P per hour, that means that's the cost. So that's actually already a definition for you. P equals the cost per per hour, or for 1 hour. So when I first read this, I said 12p. But then it says you're going to do a base rate of $12 per hour plus a temporary raise of $2.50 per hour. Well, if I just write plus $2.50, that means they're just going to give you an extra $2.50. But you want $2.50 for every hour. So we need to go back and put some parentheses in. And that's going to indicate that it's 12 hours and you're getting paid. All of this is what you're getting paid. And that's your base pay with an additional $2.50 for each hour. All right, so there's our expression and our variable. All right, last page, woohoo! So this time we're going to be writing an equation, defining the variable, do not solve. All right, an equation. So remember all of these you all said yesterday you tended to do better when you were considering, is it a total or are we comparing two things? So that's what you need to think about before you answer any of these questions. Is it a total type of problem or are we comparing two different things? Okay, so on this question, if you read, it says they give you a total. Remember, totals go at the end. So this is going to be equals 280. Anytime they give you a total, it's going to go at the end. Then they tell me that he's buying two different things, skirts and a jacket. So I'm going to add those together. This is skirts and a jacket. Now, you may be able to do this without writing out this information. I'm just trying to help you make sense of it if you're struggling. 3 skirts for $S each. So I'm going to write 3S. Remember, S is a terrible variable to use, but that's what they told us to use. Also, they go ahead and tell me what that stands for, so I'm just going to cheat and say that S equals the cost of 1 skirt. All right, the jacket costs 5 times as much as a skirt. So the jacket is 5 times the skirt. That doesn't mean you're buying 5 jackets. It means the jacket costs 5 times as much as the skirt. You could even write it as 1 times 5S if you wanted to better note for yourself that it's 1 jacket and that this is the price. Remember, don't do any more than you have to. So if it were me, I would stop right here and leave that as my equation, and this is my definition. I wouldn't combine or anything else, just leave it just like that. Okay, last one. There's a key that gives us in the very beginning. This says together, which tells me this is going to be a total problem. So I want to equal the total at the end. So it equals 15. Then it says there are 3 people. So there's Miss Williams and her husband and her brother. All right, so Miss Williams, if you read through, you've got Miss Williams completed, and then it says her brother completed. So the person we know the least about is her husband. All right, so that means we're going to call his amount of hours X. And then I'm just going to read back through. So let's actually define that. X is the number of semesters for Mr. Williams. All right, it says Miss Williams completed the same number. So if her husband has X, then she has X. And then her brother has completed 5 less. So that's going to be X minus 5, because you're going to take her amount and subtract 5. So lastly, you don't want to combine anything. You don't want to do any more than you have to do. So we're just going to leave that right there as our answer. All right, last section has very similar directions. It says to write an inequality, define the variable, do not solve. So inequality means we're going to have greater than or less than or greater than or equal to, one of those things. So again, we're reading for a total or a comparison. This says she hopes to earn at least $690 per week. Okay, so they give me a total here. So that means I'm going to equal $690. At least, and I actually lied to you, at least, you have to remember that means that's the less amount. So we want it to be more than that. So that's going to be greater than or equal to. Here, it is very important that your total goes at the end of your inequality and not at the beginning. All right, it says Leah gets paid $45 an hour plus $150 each week. Now, you may kind of have problems here because you have the word and the word each, so it looks like they're both rates, but this whole problem is talking about in a given week anyway. So $150 each week, that's kind of irrelevant because we're already talking about a single week. The hour is how much is going to change. So that means I'm going to do $45 per hour. All right, that means X is the number of hours plus $150 for 1 week. All right, so there we have our inequality. All right, we always want to decide first, is this comparison or a total problem? And the one we have in front of us right here is going to be comparison. It says, after how many hours will the first company be more affordable than another moving company, as the title. All right, so if you want it to be more affordable, that means you want the first company to be less than, and probably just less than, not even less than or equal to. You want it to be more affordable, so less than the second company. So the first company charges $800 plus $16 per hour. That's a rate word. So that means I'm going to have 800 plus 16x, where x stands for the number of hours. See, I'm looking at the word after the per. That tells me what the variable is. Less than, another moving company charges $720 plus $21 an hour. So that's $720 plus 21x. All right, we already defined everything. We picked our symbol. There you go.